Commitment Month, and I'm joined this morning by Tim Butt, one of our parish counsellors. And Tim is going to come up in a few minutes and just talk to us about Commitment Month and the packs that you've received. And I just want to say, look, maybe you haven't received your pack yet. We haven't received ours in the mail. So that's okay. Hopefully they'll come this week. But what we're going to do each week is just give you an update as to how we're going. And so, given that probably no one's received packs yet, here is where we are. So, offertories, we have nothing pledged, right? Of the $19,000 a month that we're hoping will be pledged, we have nothing. And we have nothing for any of the projects because we haven't received any forms back. We've had one practical service response come in. And so each week, what we'll do is we'll just update this so that you can see how we're tracking as a church. Now, as you prayerfully consider how you can invest in God's mission next year with your money, energy, and time, I just want to share with you some wisdom with three different groups of people in our church. Because money and energy and time are precious commodities, and they do have the potential to cause division in families. And we want this to be a good season in our life as a church rather than a season of division. But to everyone, let me encourage you, talk openly with those in your household who are part of the decision-making process. Make your decisions part of the bigger picture of your financial and time investments for 2022. And as always, pray for a generous Christ-exalting heart. So, three different groups in our church. Firstly, I want to say to those who have an unbelieving partner, if you haven't already, begin a conversation about being a generous household. So don't make it about church. Don't make it about Jesus. Start the conversation by being a generous household. You see, generosity is a good thing, and it doesn't need to be a particularly Christian thing. You can work together to be a generous household, and you can decide on amounts together of how much, that generosity might show itself in your finance and energy and time investments next year. And then as you talk about how to be generous and where to give, allow them to make suggestions about groups and organisations that you can support, and give your own suggestions as well, one of which can be St. Luke's. And then together, you can pick a couple of groups or organisations to support, and they can be invested in the act of being a generous household. And I think that'll be a good thing. Now, if your partner is against giving to the church, they say, look, we've had this conversation. I do not want us to give any of our money from this generosity pool to the church. Another conversation that you might then be able to have is where you talk about pocket money. An amount of money every week or every month that each of you has as discretionary spending. And you get to spend it on whatever you like. You save up for a Nintendo 64 if you want. And what you could then do is from that pocket money, you could give a portion of that to God's mission in 2022. Now, your partner might still not like it, but it's very hard to argue against you spending your pocket money on what you like. I mean, they might go and, buy a guitar, or they might go to the movies, or they might go and buy a Nintendo. You might buy coffee, you might buy takeaway, you might buy a new shirt, and a portion of that you might give to St. Luke's. It's very hard to argue against that when it's your own allocated money. So there's just a couple of ideas that you might raise with your partner as you think about next year. Secondly, to those in our church who've never really thought much about giving, can I encourage you this month, clear a couple of hours, put the kettle on, get together with those who make financial decisions with you in your household and write a budget with absolutely everything in it. Write a budget. Now, if you need help to write a budget, there are a million videos on YouTube you can watch, or you can just come talk to me and I'll tell you about how I write budgets. As you write the budget, place your giving to God's work at the top of the budget and ask yourself the question, what does generosity to God's mission look like in 2022? What does generosity look like for us as a family, for us as a household? Now, in the first draft, I encourage you, start with 10% of your net income given to God's mission. And then you can adjust that percentage up or down as other things get put in. Now remember that 10% isn't the goal. The goal is to start regular gospel partnership with St. Luke's with a cheerful heart. So you might start with 10%, but by the end of the budget, you might be at 5. You might be at 15. But start, and start thoughtfully and prayerfully. Finally, to those who are in the habit of giving regularly to St. Luke's, so that we don't fall into the trap of building bigger barns for ourselves, as Jesus warns us in Luke chapter 12, this year, ask yourself the question, could I increase my giving by 10% on last year as an act of gospel faith? If your pattern this year has been to give $100, could next year you give $110? If your pattern has been $200 a month, could you give $220 a month? This will keep furthering the work of the gospel. It will help us as disciples of Jesus to fight lifestyle creep. And it will fill us with longing to reap the fruit of the kingdom of heaven in St. Luke's and in Hornsby Heights. Thanks, Tim.
Hi, everyone. Because we don't really have any, we don't really have any figures yet to present about how many people have, or where we are in the different giving sections. I am just going to do what young people would call unboxing, but people my age and older would call opening the mail. I got this yesterday, so some of you won't have got it yet probably, but if you have got it, I'll show you what's inside just to get you prepared. So first you'll notice that there's quite a lot of things in there. There's the 5-year plan, which you've probably seen before. There's a 1-page overview of the 5-year plan for people like me who aren't that good at reading lots of things and want to just have the overview. There's a letter from Mike, which is worth reading, and there's 3 other bits of paper and 2 envelopes. One of them is this, which is a nice shiny brochure, and it has all the details about just the commitment and the 2021 commitment. And then there's 2 other bits of paper in there, and there's some envelopes, and you'll see the 2 envelopes here. There's 2 different sizes because I actually printed one of the bits of card too big. You can see that one here. I'll put it over this side so you can see it. This is the financial one, and there's one that asks for what you'd like to help with the church. We sort of set out a whole list of different categories, different things you can help with, like hospitality, welcoming and connection, growth groups, things like that. And so on those bits of paper, you can fill them out, and then you can You can post them back in the envelopes, the 2 envelopes that we have. The financial one, you don't need to put your name on. There's no space for names. It's just details. And the other one, it's got space for names because we need to know what you want to help with at church. There's also QR codes on both of those. So one of the things that has happened recently with the COVID thing is that QR codes are now the thing to do. And so you can scan your QR codes and fill it out online on your phone if you want to. There's also a URL code on it as well if you want to do it on a computer. If you prefer just to send them in, that's probably just as good. In fact, it is just as good. One thing I want to encourage everyone to do, though, is this time in the next few weeks and next few months is a time where people will be really looking forward to connecting. It may be a good opportunity to invite people to church or invite people over to your place who are non-Christians and invite a group of Christians around as well in order to connect them to people who are in our church so that when later on you invite them to church, they'll know people around church. It's a time of change, so make sure that, my advice would be make sure that new habits that you form, like coming to church, are habits that are solid habits. And other people will be looking for habits as well to start and connections. So it's a really good time that we should make the most of in inviting people and looking in a godly manner to make the most of this opportunity. That's all I've got to say. Thanks.
Thanks, Tim.